Welcome to Moby Dick, the very beginning. As described in my blog, Literary Zoe at WordPress.com, this reading project started as it's what passes for fun among my friends. We decided that we'd all get together virtually since we live all around the country, and we would finally read Moby Dick. A lot of us have started it, we've never finished it, and we decided that, because we aren't busy enough and because it's fun to read really difficult text, we're going to dive in and do it. And sometime before September 1st, 2014, we are going to finish Moby Dick. So, let's start. Lots of people like to talk about Lolita by Nabokov as being modern fiction's first example of a really unreliable narrator. I actually think that our very first really great unreliable narrator is this guy Ishmael, if that is his name. We don't really know. He starts out his book with "Call me Ishmael," and that is the famous first line of Moby Dick, but that isn't actually the first line. Moby Dick starts out, you've got your table of contents, and we're going to skip through the foreword. Which was interesting, actually. The edition I have is the Penguin's Book edition from 2001 with the foreword by Nathaniel Philbrick, and it's pretty good, but we're going to skip it. So we've got our table of contents. We've got a facsimile of the title page, which is Moby Dick, or The Whale. So it's not just Moby Dick, it's The Whale. And as any good English teacher will tell you, you might want to just make some notes on what a whale can be, whether it's literal or figurative or representative, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we open the second page, and we have an inscription. The book is dedicated to Nathaniel Hawthorne. Melville thought that Hawthorne was really the only person who could understand and appreciate Moby Dick, and he was right. Moby Dick was generally panned when it was published, and Melville, if I remember, died in disgrace, which really is unfortunate because Moby Dick is quite possibly the great American novel. So, we start. The very beginning is not chapter 1 with "Call me Ishmael" as the line. The very beginning is actually etymology. And the first thing we're given is a parenthetical phrase, supplied by a late consumptive usher to a grammar school. Oh, what the hell? Okay, so consumptive, he's sick, he's an usher. I already need a dictionary to figure out what these words meant at this time in history, so I'm going to be dragging out my Oxford English Dictionary soon. But for now, okay, so this is an etymology, which is, a list of a history of words and terminology, and it was given to, presumably, the author by a late consumptive usher to a grammar school. You go down one more paragraph, and you got another parenthetical phrase, and it's a description. It says, "The pale usher, threadbare in coat, heart, body, and brain. I see him now." Yeah, okay, I'm milking it, but true. "He was ever dusting his old lexicons and grammars with a queer handkerchief, mockingly embellished with all the gay flags of all the known nations of the world. He loved to dust his old grammars. It somehow mildly reminded him of his mortality." End parenthetical. Well, okay, so our narrator here could be actually describing himself as he sees himself in a romantic frame of mind. He could be referring to an archetype of a custodian of knowledge. Anyway, he's already elevating the context of this work in front of us to high art or even theology by the scope of his description. And then we go down to etymology. Now, the etymology is really interesting. It's about a page, and presumably it is simply dictionary definitions of the word whale. What he's trying to get here, there's the word in Hebrew, Greek, Latin, Anglo-Saxon, Danish, Dutch, It goes on and on and on. So, lest you miss the author's meaning here, the whale is a universal big thing in the world, okay? It's global in significance. And since our first paragraph says, particularly this sentence, he loved to dust his old grammars, it somehow mildly reminded him of his mortality. We have a mortal, nameless, faceless man balanced against the weight of the global and pervasive idea of the whale. Whatever, right? What on earth does that have to do with anything? But okay, so a whale. Now, again, before we get to chapter 1, we have another thing here, and it's called extracts. Extracts? I mean, why not just get into the story, right? But apparently it's really important to set the stage. I don't know why. But all right, for whoever is telling the story, we've got to get the appropriate sense of awe and magnitude here. So in case we missed that whales are a big deal around the world, no pun intended, now he's going to give us extracts, which parenthetically he says, supplied by a sub-librarian. A sub-librarian? Okay. Again, it could even be himself. It could be a scrounge, it could be a student, it could actually even be a phantom of the narrator's imagination at this point. And he starts it here again with parenthetical paragraphs this time. Without reading the whole thing to you, although I could because it's pretty fantastic. You got a couple paragraphs here. I gotta read some of this here. It's awesome. It will be seen that this mere painstaking burrower and grub worm of a poor devil of a sub appears to have gone through the long Vaticans and street stalls of the earth, picking up whatever random allusions to whales he could anyways find in any book whatsoever, sacred or profane. Therefore, you must not, in every case at least, take the higgledy-piggledy whale statements, however authentic, in these extracts for veritable gospel satology. Far from it. Okay, I'm going to stop there. We've already got problems in this text because here the narrator is going through a lot of work here to describe the historic and universal epic reach of the idea of the whale, right? Except then he comes right out and says, hey, don't believe anything that these guys tell you, especially the ancients and the poets and the philosophers, because, their perspective is a little tilted. Okay, so in a way, whether or not he realizes it, and he might not, he's telling us to not trust him either. Which makes sense. And then in the next, we have, let me see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. We have about 12 pages of these quotes and references from various books in the Bible to Plutarch to, oh my goodness, we've got poetry and we've got plays and we've got political letters and statements from ambassadors. It's pretty extraordinary, and they're all descriptions of the whale. So that's where we're going to start. We go through and we're going to read these extracts. I'm not going to read them all to you now, but only after reading the extracts, the last of which is, "Oh, the rare old whale, mid storm and gale, in his ocean home will be, a giant in might, where might is right, and king of the boundless sea." That's where he leaves us with these extracts. And then we get a page that just says, Moby Dick. Turn page, chapter 1, Lomings. Call me Ishmael. It's not random, and he's not trying to be hard. But as you fall asleep at night, or while you're sitting in your commuter traffic or drinking your morning coffee, think about why someone would go to so much work just to set a stage and an environment and then tell you not to take any of it seriously at all. And then he tells you to call him Ishmael. May or may not be his name. We don't know.